morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where I'm at the stage of my cold where I constantly feel like I have to sneeze. But movie news goes on, or at least it kind of does. We're in a real slow period right now as Hollywood waits for two things. One, the Super Bowl on Sunday, and two, next weekend, which is going to be a real doozy. It's Valentine's Day weekend, which has become a huge movie-going weekend because it's also a holiday, 4-day weekend with President's Day, and then also you have two juggernauts going head to head. What are those films? Well, they're of course Deadpool and Zoolander #2. And I think you're going to see a lot of activity next week as movies try to jockey to ride those two films' coattails. Now, we'll see what kind of coattails both of them have, actually. I think they're both, real question marks going into that weekend. And I'm very excited to see how they perform at the box office. But when it comes to ad campaigns, Deadpool is just obliterating Zoolander #2. It's quite sad, really, because Zoolander 2 doesn't even really seem to be putting up much of a fight. But today, for the first story, because there isn't a lot going on, we're going to take a look at their ever-evolving ad campaigns and the most recent developments in both for the first story. So, the big one is that Ryan Reynolds, we talked yesterday about how Fox is going to try and make the Super Bowl basically Deadpool Day, right? At least when it comes to movies. And they're working very hard to dominate the entire weekend. However, Ryan Reynolds, I guess, wants a little security, and he's doing his own commercial personally with no relation to Deadpool for Hyundai. Now, at first, when I saw the headline, Ryan Reynolds does a Hyundai commercial for the Super Bowl, I was like, is this like the Zoolander Fiat commercial during the Golden Globes? Today, how many car names can Grace mispronounce? I think I'm at 2. But, the Zoolander Golden Globes Fiat ad got a lot of attention. So I thought, okay, now Deadpool has himself a car ad. But no, it's just Ryan Reynolds. And perhaps Ryan Reynolds is feeling, hey, in the Deadpool movie, I have either a mask on or I have my mushy avocado face. I think that the avocado joke, by the way, on a little tangent here, is a great example of red band versus green band humor, and how I prefer actually the more clever green band humor, because I think, the inside of someone's butt is like an easy joke in the red band, and that's censored, by the way, obviously, from what T.J. Miller actually says. But I thought that T.J. Miller's green band joke, if you look like an avocado had sex with an older avocado, was really funny. But anyway, that's the Ryan Reynolds you're going to be seeing in that film. So I think Ryan Reynolds, as we all know, he's for some reason obsessed with being seen as attractive. So I think he's like, I better get out there and, remind people of how hot I am. Which I'm like, I think a number of people who are going to see Deadpool are men, so I don't really think that's like the image you want to put out there right before they go see Deadpool, right? Like, hey guys, I'm also super sexy and all your ladies think I'm hot. I'd be like, what? Save that for later, Ryan. Because as we've discussed before, his career was almost singularly undone by his six-pack. He's just so obsessed with his abs. We've seen this happen to actresses a lot, where actresses, it's not enough. I think Emma Stone, Anne Hathaway, it's not enough to be beloved and, able to sell movie tickets and open movies at #1. You have to also be apparently hot. And that's derailed a lot of young actresses' careers. And apparently, Keira Knightley and Scarlett Johansson had to get around that and, switch gears, and they've been so much more successful for it. But then Ryan Reynolds, lo and behold, seems to be like the one male actor having this problem. All of his contemporaries are trying to prove that they're not hot. Tom Hardy's like, please put something on my face. Johnny Depp, also, all of them. They're trying, Michael Fassbender, like they're working so hard to not be seen as sexy. But Ryan Reynolds is like, please, would someone please point out how sexy I am? So what's this commercial? If you haven't seen it, there's a link in the video description. So basically, two women are driving a Hyundai, and as they go along the street, everyone they see is Ryan Reynolds. And he has some funny jokes. I like the warning joke. I thought that was pretty funny. But for the most part, it's supposed to be how all these guys that are Ryan Reynolds are so hot. And these women, instead of just like, oh, that guy's so funny. And women like funny guys, by the way. That's not, the funniest guy in the room isn't a bad thing to be at all. But instead of them being like, that Ryan Reynolds is so funny, he's such a good time, I love him, they're more like, oh, he's so hot. Oh, wow, let's keep driving around this neighborhood. It's full of Ryan Reynolds. I just thought it was a really weird choice. And I'm surprised that there's just nobody advising him against making decisions like this. But I'm very curious how all of you reacted to it. And what do you think of Ryan Reynolds insisting on being seen as the hot guy? Do you agree with him? And also, how does that make you feel about him? All right, now, what's Zoolander doing? Well, it's not getting a lot of attention, so allow me to try and help it. But I was on Instagram last night, my new Instagram account, posting a photo of some little cute little stuff I keep next to my bed to say goodnight to everybody. So like my little Jiminy Cricket Christmas ornament that I kept out, and also this cute little wood carving from Italy. But anyway, so there's a plug for my Instagram account. Please, that right down there, you can see where it is. You can please go visit it. You can, we can hang out on Instagram. But anyway, while I was on there, I was like, what's this weird Barbie photo? For some reason, because Paramount. I follow Paramount. Well, now I follow Barbie Style because I feel their Instagram is actually somewhat amusing. But anyway, Paramount Instagram this photo from Barbie Style. There's 2 Barbie Instagram accounts. You want to get Barbie Style, not regular Barbie. Although I am following them both now. But anyway, apparently they have a Zoolander Barbie doll, and Zoolander is having a staycation in Los Angeles with Barbie, which I think is a great idea. I thought that was really clever. And they're like, we're going to have more photos of ourselves on this Instagram account. Stay tuned. So I was like, oh, I'm so excited about this. This is really clever. But then when I went to find the Barbie Style Instagram account, I saw they'd already posted a couple of photos from the staycation, and all the jokes were really bad and lame. So I was like, darn it, great idea. Poorly executed. So I'm curious, what do you guys think of the way the different campaigns are evolving? I think Zoolander is clearly targeting a very odd demographic, which is not everyone. Well, Deadpool is like trying to cast as wide a net as possible, and if some people aren't surprised, have a bad surprise with how gory the movie is and how it's close to NC-17, well, Deadpool will already have your money. And that's actually a very Deadpool-y thing to do, so I'm cool with it. But anyway, that's how the ad campaigns are developing, and I'm curious to what you think of them. And which one do you like better, and why do you think Zoolander isn't doing a better job competing with Deadpool? All right, and from a proactive stance, not because they're inferior, which I'm sure many of you are already typing. All right, so anyway, the second story of the day is a story that actually debuted late last week, but I didn't get a chance to cover it, and that is the announcement that they are going to bring out yet another animated version of Justice League. They keep. It's, Batman the Animated Series, and then Superman the Animated Series. They ran basically simultaneously when Superman started. And then Justice League, Justice League, and then Justice League Unlimited. The Bruce Timm, Paul Dini animated shows ran for very long periods of time. Multiple seasons. They were adored. They're still watched today and are considered the epitome. They're still the engine that drives Warner Brothers animation. But anyway, ever since they decided not to do those anymore, they have kind of like continually tried to reinvent Batman and the other characters in animated form, and it never works. It never lasts, right? We've had The Brave and the Bold. We've had Beware the Batman. And now we have this new Justice League action animated series. And when I first saw the picture, I was kind of into it. I was like, oh, that looks kind of neat. And, Kevin Conroy is going to do the voice of Batman, and Mark Hamill is going to be the Joker. They didn't announce who's doing Wonder Woman and Superman yet, but I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. And I liked Wonder Woman's costume. I called them hooker boots when we first saw them at Comic-Con, and they are a little bit hooker boots. But I think that when you start to see them more, and when you see them here on the animated version, they look a little bit more almost like knee-high stockings, which are a little bit trendier and less hookery, and they look cool. I think it's a good way to kind of still have her have the skirt, but yet not like somewhat kind of level pants. So I think it looks pretty good, and I thought she looked pretty cool. I liked her sword and her shield, and I'm kind of getting into the whole Wonder Woman thing thanks to Gal Gadot. I think they're doing a good job with Wonder Woman. Problems with the stunts aside. But then they said that this is going to be, and also they said this is going to be action-packed. It's called Justice League Action. It's going to be lots of fight sequences. So I was like, oh, that's cool. But then they were like, oh, it's a new quarter-hour show on Cartoon Network. So that means 15-minute episodes. And that's ridiculous. I think that one of the reasons that people like Batman the Animated Series and Superman the Animated Series and the Justice League Animated Series was because they had such great character development. They had great character moments. They had great fight sequences, of course, but they also had really, really great downtime in between those fight sequences. They had ongoing arcs. Like, who doesn't remember the love affair between Green Lantern and Hawk Girl? It's weird. I'm like, Hawk Woman? No, Hawk Girl. But, that was fantastic. I think that still defines the character to many people. I think they just did a wonderful job with that series. But all of them, they were very, very well done. And I think that a 15-minute series is just not the way to go. Will I watch the heck out of it online? Probably. But I don't think it's going to take a place in people's hearts like those original shows did. And I think that it's important to have the razzle-dazzle, but I think you have to also have the heart. And that's something I think we all worry about going forward with DC in general with their DCEU properties. And I also would really love a Suicide Squad animated series, by the way. I'm like, where's that? And done in that style. I think that would be super awesome. But we'll see. So I'm curious how many of you plan to watch this. I'm not going to watch it on Cartoon Network. It's too difficult. That it's hard to find these 15-minute shows. But if they put it online, I definitely would watch it. But I'm also curious, what do you think of the 15-minute format? Are you a fan of it? Because it's supposed to be all like modern friendly, like nobody has time to watch a 22-minute show, but 15 minutes they can totally take. And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm curious. What do you think? All right, so the third story of the day, I had a couple people actually tweet me about this, so I'm surprised that it showed up on the mainstream radar, which I think is great. That means that you are in tune to what's going on in Hollywood, and you are business savvy, and you know what's going on in the industry. So kudos to anyone who saw this story already. But what happened? Well, interestingly enough, Fox, coming off of their huge success with Grease Live on Sunday night, announced they are doing a round of layoffs. All right, so this is very corporate, and it reminds you how much of a business Hollywood truly is. So this is what's going on. Now they're like, yes, we have 3 movies nominated for Best Picture. We're a huge hit with Grease Live. Why are we doing layoffs in movies and TV? Well, it's important to restructure when you're at the top. So I actually, I think there's some logic to that, but boy, does it sure suck for everyone. It just goes to show you that you're never safe, always be nervous, and you never know what's going to happen, right? Don't be lulled into a false sense of Grease Live security. So anyway, this was the announcement. So Fox basically feels they're too big, right? They want to become a streamlined organization. And also they're not only too big, but they're too expensive. And also other studios have been doing this, but Fox has done it in a particularly kind of like not great manner. So what are they doing? Well, I don't know. I guess it's kind of nice, but you tell me what you think. It's like just typical corporate. So what they're doing is that they want to cut $250 million worth of expenses. And when they say expenses, they seem to mean people's salaries. And I guess maybe rent for their office. But anyway, $250 million is what they're looking to save across movies and television. So what they're going to do is they're saying, well, we're going to have voluntary termination packages where you will volunteer. Now, this is in quotations because I'm going to explain the reality of this in a moment. But the pitch is that you will volunteer to quit, and we will give you a very nice termination package with benefits and a nice severance pay, and I'm sure a non-disclosure agreement that you have to sign. But anyway, you can't just volunteer for this. They're going to pick who can volunteer. So they said after these memos go out, and the memos leaked both from the head of TV and the head of movies, they said you might get an email in your account that says you have been selected to have the opportunity to volunteer to quit and have a nifty severance package. And then you can decide whether or not you want to take us up on our offer and therefore volunteer, or you can probably be fired a couple months later with far less benefits. So that's crazy. It's not really volunteering. It's like saying, who wants to volunteer? And then saying, hey, Bill, do you want to volunteer? Because if you don't volunteer, I'm going to pick you anyway. So why don't you put a happy smiley face on this and volunteer? So it's a crazy situation, and I think it just goes to show how much Hollywood is changing. They are getting rid of a lot of padding. I think it's just the digital age in general. When you think back to how many things needed to be done by hand and by people, and that itself is a really complex argument because, while a machine can do certain things, or also technology has allowed one person to do many more jobs than they used to be able to do. One person can do what it used to take like 3 or 4 people to do. The news industry has gone through a similar problem. You are putting people out of a job, and you're making far less opportunity for people out there. And then that increases the people who are on unemployment, who are homeless, and it's trickle down. So it's a really complex situation, and Hollywood obviously is not immune. But I'm curious to what you think of it, and what do you think of these voluntary termination packages. Also, I think it's hilarious that it leaked in the news. Do you want to know how this gets in the news? Well, somebody gets this memo and they're really upset about it. So what they do is they then send it to the big internet companies, usually the trades, and then from there, as soon as one trade picks it up, everybody picks it up. But they have these tip-off email addresses for Deadline and Hollywood Reporter, etc. So as soon as this gets in someone's inbox, they go, what? Especially if they're like, probably I would guess the older employees are being the ones who are being asked to quit. So they're like, to the Deadline, tip box, and that's how it gets out there. So that's also one of the reasons, by the way, that Bleeding Cool gets a lot of its stories, is that people are annoyed and they feel, I want to be like a vigilante and serve justice to this company which is doing shady crap. So what they do is they then leak the story often to Bleeding Cool, because Bleeding Cool will report it. If you go see The Big Short, very scary movie, and in the end, not funny at all, you'll see that a lot of times press won't actually report something, which is one of the great things about the internet, because there's somebody who will always put it up there. But a lot of times, the established press won't report something for fear of damaging their relationship with who the story is about. So in comics, actually, this story has taken a wild turn. But in comics, a lot of the big comic book sites, like Comic Book Resources, Newsarama, etc., they have very good relationships with the big two, so they don't want to jeopardize those, because then they won't get scoops and they won't get like first looks at covers and interviews, etc. So they won't sometimes publish a story like that. But Bleeding Cool will, because they don't have a relationship with any of the publishers. So that's their bread and butter, getting scoops like that. So it's really interesting to see how different news sites evolve, and it's important to know what kind of news site you're dealing with, so you know what kind of stories they run and what also their behind the scenes priorities are, and not in a negative way. I mean, like, to each their own, and you have the reputation that you have. So anyway, those are the 3 stories of the day. Now, for the viewer question, this comes from Nicholas Williams. And Nicholas says, Grace, I have a question that I would love for you to answer if you could. My pleasure, Nicholas. The Hunger Games started off as a huge franchise, propelling Jennifer Lawrence into stardom. But after its last movie failed to perform as it should have, it looks like the franchise is in danger. Do you think that it was Jennifer Lawrence's fault, or just people getting tired of the Hunger Games? Again, I would love to hear your opinion on morning movie news, and can't wait for your Deadpool coverage. Thank you! Multiple smiley faces. 3 of them are the blushing ones. Those are adorable. All right, so anyway, I love emojis. I need more emojis. They don't develop them fast enough. Maybe I should pay for some emojis, but part of me doesn't want to have to pay for emojis. But anyway, interesting question, Nicholas. I think that it's partially Jennifer Lawrence's fault. I think that her article about not being paid enough really backfired on her. It's really interesting. I think that to some degree people, you could blame it as people being like, women shouldn't complain about being paid. That's the easy way out. But I think a lot of people made a really good point saying, Jennifer Lawrence gets paid millions of dollars. That is not something I can really sympathize if she got paid a few million less than someone else. And I think that's kind of true. I think that Jennifer Lawrence should have framed it differently as equal pay for everyone. And, I think that, the noise being made has led to, for instance, the government recently saying that companies have to report how much they pay men and women so they can see if there are indeed discrepancies between gender pay. And that's fantastic, because at other levels, like the non-movie star level, it does really matter significantly if you aren't paid equally between men and women. But anyway, I think that did hurt Jennifer Lawrence. I think there's a little bit of a backlash coming, but as far as the Hunger Games goes, I think that the decision to split the final movie into 2 is what really ended up hurting it. Also, I think the change of the franchise, and that's something that was in the book, so there wasn't really anything they could do about it, but moving away from the pageantry of the games, I think really affected the films overall. And Lionsgate has acknowledged that, which is why they're very set on prequels, because they feel like for this franchise to continue, they need to go back to the games. That people want the games, not so much the dystopian future with political discussions about propaganda, which I found fascinating, but a lot of other people didn't. They wanted the games, which says a little something about the Capitol as well, that maybe they were right about what entertains people, right? So that's pretty interesting in and of itself. But that's why I think the Hunger Games got into trouble. Also, perhaps there might have been a little bit too many competitors. They've really watered down the genre as well, the young adult dystopian future genre. And then also, it was a very crowded winter holiday season with, of course, Star Wars right on the horizon, and also James Bond. It was just very crowded, and I think a lot of people probably were saving their money for Star Wars. And they probably felt they already saw Mockingjay once. They didn't need to see the second one. I think Mockingjay 1 and 2 is an excellent a cautionary tale, Nicholas, about shooting movies back to back, because if there's a problem with the first one, you're not able to course correct because other one's already in the can. So I think that while it saves money to shoot movies back to back, unless you're going to release them really close together, you shouldn't do that. I think if you can shoot them with a little bit of a distance, you should do that. So, and it's a little bit worrisome for Avengers: Infinity War, but you want to make sure that you can change and make adjustments according to audience response. So I think that that's a very good warning sign. As for Jennifer Lawrence, I think it's a little too early to tell. I think that the thing that she did with that reporter at the Golden Globes was not good. I think the thing with Mystique, I think that that's something that's still coming to a head. I think that when that movie actually hits theaters, we'll see what happens there about the Blue situation, that she wasn't willing to play the character as everyone wants to see the character. I think that's something that's kind of like laying in wait for her. So we'll see how she does in 2016. I think it's going to be really telling. And, no movie star is immune no one's good forever. There's high ebbs and flows to everyone's career. And I think that, nobody should ever feel they've made it. They're golden. Just ask Harrison Ford. Or even Robert Downey Jr., who felt that he was at the top of his game and he could do no wrong, and then he released The Judge. So we'll see what happens with Jennifer Lawrence. Hopefully she maybe gets a different PR person to handle her and maybe watch her a little bit more closely. She has gotten a lot of mileage out of being, a very frank individual, which people have really enjoyed. But, it's a very fine line between being very frank and, not being a nice person. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think that Jennifer Lawrence, I think she's hit a rocky patch, but I think she's by no means, we should write her off. I think she's still very strong, and she still commands a lot of attention. So we'll see what happens. All right, so that's today's morning movie news. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Please write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories and that viewer question from Nicholas. Anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.